I'm excited for this segment.
Me too.
Okay. Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. For the first time, they decide, we're gonna go swimming with the sharks with the portal. And when Luke Ferrelli, I watched first time I watched Luke Ferrelli, I was watching the Cal SMU game, and I was like, dude, I like this kid. 41 out here, is flying around. And then I saw he won ACC Defensive like Rookie of the Year. And then I saw he was going to Clemson. I was like, oh, huge get for Clemson. Like, good on Dabo for getting this guy. Um, and then fucking debauchery ensued. And if you have not watched the press conference Dabo Swinney gave on this matter, it is pure gold. If you didn't like Dabo Swinney, you will after watching this press conference. So the kid signs, he enrolls in class, he's walking around like he's in classes at Clemson. If you were a student in the economics department, you might have saw him. And so anyway, Ole Miss reaches out to him as he's a student before the portal closes, as he's a student at Clemson, and they basically are like, "Hey man, like this is the money we could give you if you came." And Pete Golding is like talking to him on the phone. They get supposedly Jackson Dart and Trinidad Chambliss both called him, telling him to come to Ole Miss. Um, got wind of this. He told Pete Golding, or at least the age, or at least like the guys, a contact he had at Ole Miss. He said, "Tell Pete, stop right now, or like I will like go to the press. Like you will not get away with this." Pete Golding, 4 weeks into being a head coach, he's like a newborn head coach, like Dabo was putting it. Decides, fuck it, I'm gonna mess with an elite Hall of Fame head coach, and he's gonna find out because so they end up they keep pursuing him. He ends up like leaving the facility one day, Ferrelli, and committing to old like entering the transfer portal without telling anybody. So then the compliance guy's like, Dabo, there's like there your linebackers in the portal. And he's like, what? And like, dude, just a whole insane. And then dude, this is the funniest quote. Ferrelli's agent was like, yeah, we'll help you. We'll help you put Ole Miss down. Just match the number. And Dabo hung up the phone, dude. Fucking baller move from Dabo Swinney. Um, he wanted him to stop. He didn't. And I hope they get their revenge. Arch, I'm really excited. Like, I really want to know, like, does the NCAA have teeth here? Because the old NCAA, like, Ole Miss is screwed. I hope Ole Miss gets like 10 years bowl banned. I hope they get the death penalty because at some point somebody's got to be made example of. And what more perfect example of? I mean, he's like Dabo Swinney is saying like 11:46 p.m. or a.m. This phone call happens. Like, dude, they are dead to rights if the NCAA has teeth here, do they?
Uh, no, because if they have no teeth because the NCAA has no authority or power without any legislation from the United States of America, from federal statutes or federal common law. And since they have none to this point, anything the NCAA does will just end up in court, like we've seen. So, I mean, nothing is going to happen. And even if something did, Ole Miss would appeal it, and then you would go back down the rabbit hole of the whole they just sued for everything and then they get away with it.
I loved Ole
So I
Miss
don't
so
think
much, and
that.
I couldn't be more of an Ole Miss hater now. I am forever on. That shit is insane.
Well,
I
you
want to
hired a douchebag after getting rid of a douchebag, so it's not shocking.
I want to talk about I think there's just a lot of bad actors in this situation. I think Pete Golding's definitely a bad actor, and whoever's helping administrate that the recruitment of Luke Ferrelli from Old Miss's end, I think those are all bad actors that are pretty narrow viewed and pretty okay with eroding some of the foundations that should exist and should just be common practice. You don't really need regulations in place to enforce this, but I know these coaches get paid a lot of money to win games and they're going to do whatever it takes to do that. So it's hard to place 100% blame on anyone in this situation, but I just think there's a lot of narrow-sighted people involved in this that are acting in bad faith towards the goal of creating a college football environment that's sustainable for the future. And I think another bad actor in this situation, and you see this pop up across the entire landscape of college football as the transfer portal and NIL has become a thing and implemented in the sport. I think a lot of the agents are really taking advantage of being able to basically act without any rules. And it's like I was saying, it's very narrow sighted and really bad for the game. And this guy in particular, Ryan Williams, who works for an agency called Athletes First, whose motto, let me just read their motto off. It's the first thing you see when you open their website. Their motto is changing the game for clients everywhere. Do the right things with the right people for the right reasons. So if you're acting based
Mission
off of that
statement.
motto, then I think that they're a little bit slanted and a little bit off
Well,
base
I
from
think
their goal. And I
you
think we should
missed it, Duska.
change. I want to
It's
change the
ironic.
motto.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
It's very
ironic when you
ironic. I
read
want
it.
to
Yeah.
change the motto to athletes first, ruining the game for clients everywhere. Do the wrong things with the wrong people because they have more money. And that's when you boil it down to it. And when you see what this agent Ryan Williams did over the course of the Luke Ferrelli recruitment process, and with them even entertaining Ole Miss after he was signed and enrolled and going to team meetings and working out with the team and going to classes and everything, when you see how they acted on that end, and I think this is being driven by the agent because I think these guys just for a lot of it boils down to I think that they just want more commission on the deals that their clients are signing. And I think he saw that, oh my gosh, Ole Miss is guaranteeing $2 million a year for you to go there. We're not making even close to that amount, and we don't have guarantees from Clemson. So why don't we do that? And you can bend the rules and find a way to get to Ole Miss. And I think that it's the things that happened in this process are completely absurd to me. And Ryan Williams using extortion tactics from Clemson and asking for a quid pro quo, like a you give us $1 million and we'll turn in the text so you can bust Ole Miss and take them down. I think it's just completely ridiculous. And like I was saying, it's very narrow sighted, and these guys are so focused on this cycle this year and doing the most they can to maximize their profits. It's eroding the foundation of the sport, and it's ruining it. And I think Dabo had a good quote too when he basically summed it up by saying that it's like having an affair on your honeymoon. And it's just sad to see a guy that's enrolled at the school and in classes is not safe, and you can't even be certain that he's a part of the roster. And the other ironic part about it is that it's Clemson. It's the team and the coach that was so hesitant about the portal and so committed to bringing in players out of high school and developing them and not touching the portal. And then you see him dip the toes in the water and actually do a good job. They do everything right. They're good recruiters there, and they bring in a good player and sign him, and then this type of thing happens to them, and you're just like, where does this leave Dabo, and will he ever want to touch the portal again? So it's a completely ridiculous situation. It's very sad, and like I've said, it boils down to there's a lot of bad actors that don't really care about the sustainability of college football and are really just focused on trying to maximize their opportunity in just 1 year. So.
Yeah, I agree, Jessica. I think the root of the problem here is these so-called agents that are allegedly working in the best interest of their players, yet putting their player in the middle of a situation where instead of shutting down the tampering, like the obvious tampering, they use it as leverage. And that is where the root of the problem with this whole situation is that you have guys leveraging players and their well-being for a percentage of a paycheck. And that is going to be the problem until there's legislation and or regulation on who is able to represent these players and how they're able to represent these players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna add one thing. I think the ACC needs to kind of step in here and give these schools boilerplate terms and boilerplate templates for these contracts now, because I think there's a clear difference. Obviously, the Mensa thing we'll talk about next week or whenever, but there's a clear difference between the contracts that Mensa had at Duke and that Ferrelli had at Clemson compared to what Damon Williams had at Washington that made him stay. And it wasn't just Damon Williams' change of heart. It was actual terms that they were legally bound by when they signed a contract. So I think now the ACC definitely need, if they were competent, they would step in and give these schools these. And it's also ironic because the ACC has just sat back and watched Duke get a quarterback ripped from their hands that's going to go to Miami because, of course, they're going to want their big names in their conference to have the most success. So obviously they're not going to do anything. But I think this is going to be the time for conferences all over to see these other examples and kind of – I think we're going to see less and less of this because contract terms and conditions and buyouts and punishments are going to be that much higher.
So you think there's no way that they could just be like, hey, you're not there's like, are there not explicit rules against tampering though? And could they
Yeah,
not
I mean,
prove
Yeah,
could they
but
not prove without a reasonable doubt in court that there was tampering and that you should get 5 years, no bowl game?
usually there's not going to be – I don't think they're going to be – they would go to court. It would be like an NCAA like hearing where like the NCAA – and I mean, there is – that's how like that would happen. But
yeah, but imagine
the tamp
Evidence
the
is so
can
clear
of
though that they should be able
worms.
to, like Dabo was saying in the press conference, they should be able to settle this pretty quickly. And even if
Yeah.
Ole Miss appeals, review the appeal quickly and have a decision made by the beginning of next season. Like you don't have
Well,
to. There doesn't have to be like wait time
This
or
red
like
tape.
like legislative like back end work that has to go into being able to make a decision on this. Like they should be able to, with all the evidence that Dabo presented in the press conference and made public, they should be able to rule on it fast and get through an appeal process fast. That it just doesn't make. There's no. It's like common sense doesn't exist in these situations, and it's it's kind of crazy because it's a sport that's worth so much money, but it's got there's no regulations or rules or anything. It's unbelievable.
I would just say that the tampering won't take away that Ferrelli's going to be on Ole Miss's roster next year, and like that could be fine because that's the unfortunate part about this. Like Ole Miss can get punished for tampering, and maybe part of their punishment they pay Clemson $1 million for their revenue sharing. But that guy's going to be on Ole Miss's roster next year, so Clemson just got you basically got hoed, and your compensation won't doesn't change the fact you lost a guy in the portal window. Now you don't like all these guys that you took over that you took Ferrelli over aren't going to be on your team. So
But
yeah,
like,
sports broken.
it's so sad that like we can't get like, hey, Ole Miss, like you blatantly broke the rules. Here's our evidence. 8 years, you're not allowed to have a bowl game, and your revenue sharing is cut to $10 million a year. You're fucked. Like, I
Yeah.
wish they had some sort of teeth because we're talking about an NCAA that took a Heisman Trophy from a guy, and an NCAA that had a death penalty on SMU back in the day. Like, this used to be an organization with some teeth. Now they're a
Yeah, I don't
fucking
know what
puppy.
happened to teams getting wins revoked and titles revoked. I don't know how that ever stopped being a thing, but
Yep. Fucking now they get the teethless guppy.
just
All
a
right.
lot of bad actors.
Yeah, bad actors. Well, we got four good actors on this show, so we're gonna be keeping you guys updated with college football transfer portal, Super Bowl, golf, Olympics, some hockey. We'll probably give you some Pens content up and around the bend. So
Mm.
just wanted to thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you when we see you next within the next week.